Hello, sir.
Hello, Captain. Where did you load the crude oil from?
There is a secret cartel operating in these waters. This is one of their many vessels used to steal Nigerian crude oil. And I'm going to show you exactly how they have managed to get away with this oil theft for decades. The story started in 2013 when the Nigerian Navy got wind of a vessel being used to steal crude oil from this oil well right here. In July 2013, the Nigerian Navy was on patrol in this region of the High Sea, a place commonly known as offshore escravos. Usually, oil tankers pass through this route as there is an oil facility located here. But in this particular case, there was suspicious activity detected by the Navy. This particular tanker was found where it wasn't supposed to be, and that was a big problem. The Navy team patrolling this area was known as NNS Cobra. This Cobra team, having detected two strange vessels taking crude from this oil well, made the judgment call to take over the vessels and arrest those on board. 2 months later, on October 2nd, 2013, the Nigerian Navy decided to hand over the arrested vessels and the crew members to the Economics and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC. 6 suspected oil thieves were handed over to this anti-corruption agency on that fateful day, and the names of the vessels seized were MV SOA and MT Ali Riza Bay. These vessels were transferring petrol, diesel oil and kerosene to smaller boats, which they will then use to smuggle these products to other countries and sell illegally. These arrests were in fact great news for the Nigerian government and the people at large, partly because the Nigerian government needs this revenue from crude oil to be able to run the country, something oil theft in the region has been robbing them of. And for the people, this was justice. Dealing with these criminals in the most decisive way will in fact help the environment, as their activities have caused serious damage because of oil spills. However, about 10 years after that arrest was made, a private security firm contracted by the Nigerian oil company NNPCL got wind of yet another suspicious activity on yet another oil facility on the high sea. When the security operatives got to the oil well, they were shocked that some security personnel or someone somehow have allegedly tipped the captain of the vessel off, and the vessel had disappeared. But following the trail left behind, it wasn't long before the man known as government was able to catch up with the fleeing vessel. However, something was shockingly wrong. The private security personnel could hardly believe their eyes when they saw the vessel. This shouldn't be. It was as though someone had risen from the dead and back to their old ways. Before their very eyes was an oil vessel that was arrested for oil theft by the Nigerian Navy 10 years ago. This same vessel that was handed over to the EFCC back in 2013 for prosecution. This was MT Ali Riza Bay, but this time bearing a new name. Something fishy is indeed going on in these waters. The question was, how did this vessel manage to get away? Or should I say, who let it go? Or yet another question, who is it working for? As you will find from this story, it's not a simple answer after all. There are names, company records, bank statements and profiles of top officials to help us piece together this puzzle and to finally answer the question of who is responsible for the decades-long oil theft that has plagued Nigeria. In this 3-part special series, we will expose the secret cartel behind all the oil theft in Nigeria and how a certain cabal of top politicians and business people have allegedly been involved in a deep cover-up for decades to loot the Nigerian treasury.
Captain, who owns this crude oil that you are taking? Who owns it?
It's Olaf. Olaf. Yes.
What is the name of the person who owns the company?
Sir?
What is the name of the person who owns the company?
Tony.
from the documents and calls I've had to listen to while doing my research for this story, it appears there's a likelihood of a deep-rooted conspiracy to defraud Nigeria by some highly corrupt individuals, allegedly in the Nigerian Navy and the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Authority known as NIMASA, as well as the Nigerian Port Authority, NPA. Here's what I mean.
Oil in Nigeria is being stolen by people in government.
This vessel that was caught carrying crude oil sailed from Lagos all the way down to Niger Delta to illegally lift crude oil. How it managed to avoid all the tracking systems of the Nigerian Navy and NIMASA remains a mystery. But before we get into the powerful forces shielding the vessel, let's answer the question on oil theft. When you hear of oil theft, what comes to your mind? How is this act even carried out? I spent a lot of time thinking about this. It is not like there are pipelines all around the streets. And how do you even know that a particular pipeline has crude oil flowing through it? Well, while going through lots of materials to answer this question, I found something very interesting. It turns out there are various ways oil thieves go about stealing crude in Nigeria. The first is known as hot tapping. During this process, these thieves connect an illegal pipeline to a high-pressure pipeline belonging to one of these multinational companies. When they are able to do this successfully, oil is then diverted from the primary pipeline into oil vessels or tankers that are then used to transport these illegal oil proceeds to neighboring countries. Now, by gradually taking this crude oil from the primary source in small amounts, these pipelines can remain undetected for years. Now, hot tapping is a very complex process and actually very dangerous as well. It is not a method someone with little knowledge of the oil facilities will attempt, which was why in one of the operations to arrest those carrying out these illegal acts, the group CEO of the NNPCL, Mr. Melekari, said this was a professional job. Now, another method used by these criminals is called cold tapping. This is the method used by those militant groups that blow up pipelines just so they can attach their own pipeline to the primary pipeline. The difference here is that once the primary pipeline is blown up, it is usually shut down for maintenance, by which time the criminals can then carry out their own attachment of their pipelines to the primary pipeline, from where they can gradually transfer crude oil to their vessels. The last method is the least sophisticated, but the one which requires collaboration with security agencies. This one is called terminal and vehicle transportation. This is carried out at the port terminals where crude and refined oil products are transported to international locations. In this phase of the oil theft, it is alleged that top officials collude with corrupt security agents to facilitate the stealing of oil shipment reserves into criminal fuel trucks. These trucks are then taken into neighboring countries where oil is not subsidized as in Nigeria. This is how the oil theft industry has been thriving while the Nigerian government continues to lament and cry over lost revenue. Every administration, right from the time of President Olusegun Obasanjo, has threatened to expose those behind this oil theft, but somehow the list never gets out. This is because there is in fact a cartel responsible for oil theft in Nigeria, a very powerful one that will not like this video.
Captain, how long have you been doing this job?
I've been in this job 20 years now.
Oil theft is not carried out by the boys caught with vessels on the open sea. It is not being carried out by the local villagers refining oil in the woods. Oil theft, the organized nature of it, requires an effective collaboration between different players or participants, kind of like a cartel, each member playing its role and everything functioning like a system as it was designed to be. There are different players in this industry that form part of the cartel. Our first piece of the puzzle starts in the military. According to official records, since 1986, the Nigerian military has maintained close control over the crude oil trade. Some of the corrupt military personnel and joint task force members involved in this illegal trade of Nigeria's crude actively help in its transportation during large-scale operations, and some are involved in intelligence gathering. Some of these officials, and this intelligence is allegedly necessary for avoiding security forces. Now, this is not a systemic thing, I must say. It is a matter of bad apples within the military carrying out rogue operations to loot the national treasury. Now, listen to this audio clip and hear what this commander was saying to one of the security personnel after they arrested this vessel that was engaging in oil theft.
I see one Navy gunboat on the phone.
You see Navy gunboats where?
The jacket.
Oh, you saw Navy.
One of the jackets.
You saw Navy gunboat at one of the jackets.
Yes.
Okay. All
I
right.
saw that.
Okay. Try as much as possible to avoid them, if you can. If you see them, sail far away from them. Yeah.
So, while the Nigerian Navy is fighting the criminals stealing crude oil from Nigeria, there are alleged elements within the same Navy aiding and abetting the same oil theft. Again, it is not my assertion. The next piece of our puzzle is the militants. According to former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo, militant organizations have often been used by political godfathers in the oil sector regions to cause chaos in these regions. These disturbances then give the political elite the opportunity to implement methods of oil theft. These criminal gangs are most times used to sabotage pipelines for cold tapping of crude oil. An example of these militants is the Niger Delta Avengers, a group we'll talk about much later in this series, especially for the efforts of some of the ex-gang members in trying to prevent oil theft in recent years. Surprised? Well, hold that thought until we get there. Another critical part of the cartel are the companies. The dangerous nature of crude oil theft explained by the hot tapping method requires the expert knowledge of oil company workers. As a result, resident oil companies have some rogue officials working with them in highly placed positions. These individuals help facilitate oil theft at the crude oil stage. But how, you may ask? Well, these people provide technical expertise to the gang members and may even help in oil withdrawal operations. Some are even alleged to have offered inside knowledge on the schedule of corporate inspection operations on these pipelines. I watched a documentary where it was alleged that some oil workers join local villagers in destroying pipelines so they can be awarded the contract of repairs, as well as cleaning of the oil spills that will eventually occur. And then the final piece of the puzzle is this local population. There is no way oil theft happens without the collaborative effort of some village heads or youths in the community. As revealed by investigations carried out by security forces and the NNPCL, dozens of these illegal refineries are owned and operated by villagers, and they are known. So it is not so much of a hidden venture. This is the cartel that has been stealing Nigeria's crude for many years. Like in the case of this vessel right here that magically reappears after being arrested and handed over to the EFCC over 10 years ago. This vessel has been in this illegal business for over a decade. Now, I wanted to understand how a vessel that was arrested 10 years ago somehow managed to get back into operation without being detected by any security force in the region. Well, it turns out this vessel is far from being the only one involved in oil theft in Nigeria. There have been so many cases of catch and release. Some were even destroyed. Well, in these exclusive documents I have right here are bank records, company profiles, and lots more that link members of this secret cartel. Also, I was able to lay hands on an exclusive audio recording of the owner of this vessel. The documents linking him with the company that has been using this boat to steal crude oil from Nigeria for over a decade now. The question we are trying to answer here is, how did this vessel manage to get away from the EFCC? who was it working for?
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Sorry, I missed your call.
Yeah, I actually want to know what is your relationship with Polar Maritime Service Limited.
Okay, man,